Hello everyone, Dr. Jawahar here. Yet again with not a video but a video series. We are going to discuss in detail about the inferior alveolar nerve block technique. Under this, we will be discussing anatomy of inferior alveolar nerve, following that nerve block technique and its complications. So let us get it done and dusted. At the end of this session, students must understand the rationale behind the needle choice, review the goals of inferior alveolar nerve block injection technique, understand the inherent shortcomings resulting in failed blocks. In this presentation, I will be discussing on anatomy of inferior alveolar nerve, introduction to intraoral injection techniques, and introduction to inferior alveolar nerve block. Following that, I will be discussing in detail about the inferior alveolar nerve block technique, and I will be completing with the complications. Inferior alveolar nerve is the posterior division of mandibular nerve and it is the largest branch of mandibular division. Inferior alveolar nerve has three branches. First is nerve to myloid, then it divides into mental nerve and incisive nerve. Myloid nerve gets branched out before entering into the inferior alveolar nerve canal. Once the inferior alveolar nerve enters the mandibular canal, it travels anteriorly along with the inferior alveolar artery and the vein. Providing effective pain control is one of the most important aspects of dental care. There are three major types of local anesthetic injection. Depositing LA solution near the small terminal nerve branches is called as local infiltration. Depositing LA solution near the larger terminal nerve is called as field block. Depositing near a main nerve trunk is called as nerve block. Infiltrations are significantly higher failure rate for mandibular anesthesia because the thickness of the cortical plate is very dense in an adult mandible. To anesthetize the majority area of the mandible, it usually requires a nerve block. Inferior alveolar nerve block is also called as mandibular nerve block or Olmsted approach. The nerves anesthetized following this nerve block will be inferior alveolar nerve, incisive nerve, mental nerve, and lingual nerve. Moving on to the technique, a long dental needle is recommended for the adult patient. A 25 gauge long needle is usually preferred, or else 27 gauge long needle is acceptable. Moving on to the landmarks, there are three main landmarks to be considered before giving inferior alveolar nerve block. First is the coronoid notch. You can see the pink block in the picture representing the anterior border of the ramus. Coronoid notch is the greatest concavity on the anterior ramus. Next is the pterygomandibular raphe. Here the dotted imaginary line in the picture represents the pterygomandibular raphe. X mark denotes the pterygomandibular depression. It is also called as pterygotemporal depression. And this is where we are going to pierce the needle for inferior alveolar nerve block. Next is the occlusal plane of the mandibular posterior teeth. Imagine this green block as syringe. This indicates that if we keep the syringe at the level of occlusal plane, for sure we can reach the mandibular foramen. Pterygomandibular raphe. We must have heard about pterygomandibular raphe quite often, but we usually forget what it is and what is the role of pterygomandibular raphe during inferior alveolar nerve block. So before going on to the pterygomandibular raphe, we all know what is this. This is a landmine. If we accidentally stand on this, we end up in a blast. Now imagine parotid gland as landmine. This is the picture showing inferior alveolar nerve block. As I already told, imagine parotid gland as landmine. If you accidentally advance the needle near the parotid gland, you will end up in a blast. Blast here refers to facial nerve paralysis. To avoid a landmine blast, we need an external flag so that we won't stamp on the landmine. Likewise, we need an intraoral landmark or a flag to identify the posterior border of the ramus, and that flag is called as pterygomandibular raphe. This is a picture of medial ramus. Blue marking here denotes the posterior border of the ramus, and the parotid gland is just behind this posterior border. In summary, the coronoid notch should be considered as complete anterior border of the ramus, and the pterygomandibular raphe as posterior border of the ramus. Now, this helps us to find the anterior-posterior dimension of ramus of the mandible. Three parameters must be considered during administration of IA and B. First is the height of injection, second is the anterior-posterior dimension, and third will be the depth of penetration. First parameter is height of injection. As I already told, imagine this green block as a syringe. Theoretically speaking, if we keep the syringe 6 to 10 mm above the level of occlusal plane, we can reach the mandibular foramen. Next is the anterior posterior dimension. Now, take a circle, divide it into 4 sectors. Apply this division on the medial ramus by 1/4, half, 3/4 of the ramus, and full. Now, again I will mark these imaginary lines in a block and we can compare them over the sectors of the circle. First is 1/4, then the half, then 3/4 of the ramus, and the full. The red marking here denotes the target area where the needle should be reached. So, if we mark another imaginary line when drawn occlusally, the meeting point of these two lines demarcates the location of mandibular foramen. The last parameter is depth of penetration. Bone should be contacted ideally 20 to 25 mm in a long needle, or we can say 2/3 to 3/4 of the long needle. Inferior alveolar nerve block is more complex and technique sensitive. In order to simplify this, we have come up with a new idea of comparing the nerve block technique with the map of India. Want to know more? So let us get into the video. In this video, I have incorporated few new methods to learn and remember the inferior alveolar nerve block technique. And I have also mentioned few tips on how to administer IANB for patients with different facial profile. This picture shows the LA solution is being deposited in the pterygomandibular space. We can also see the lingual nerve is anterior to the inferior alveolar nerve and the needle first pierces the buccal muscle and then it enters into the pterygomandibular space. In case of broad ramus, during this situation, we have to move the syringe near the contralateral molars to reach the mandibular foramen. In case of narrow ramus, we have to shift the syringe over the contralateral canine or lateral incisors to reach the appropriate depth. In a normal mandible, place the syringe over the contralateral premolars to reach the mandibular foramen. This is an axial view of pterygomandibular space. Our aim is to anesthetize the lingual nerve and inferior alveolar nerve. Now, I'm going to compare the medial ramus to the west coast of our map of India. Black arrow denotes the anterior ramus, purple arrow denotes the posterior ramus, and red arrow here emphasizes the medial ramus of the mandible. Likewise, in the map of India, we can imagine this red flower bracket over the west coast area from Goa to Surat as medial border of the ramus. We need to consider Goa as anterior border of the ramus and Surat as posterior border of the ramus. We also need to imagine Mumbai as inferior alveolar nerve, Pune as lingual nerve, and consider East Coast Chennai as opposite side premolars. Now the syringe has to travel from Chennai to reach Mumbai. Imagine you are boarding a flight from East Coast Chennai to West Coast Mumbai to anesthetize the inferior alveolar nerve and come back to Pune to anesthetize the lingual nerve. Considering the India map as medial ramus could be an easy way to remember the landmarks of inferior alveolar nerve block. Recently, I saw a video by Professor Stanley Malamed where he tried with United States map and this inspired me and I tried on our Indian map. After giving the inferior alveolar nerve block, the following areas will get anesthetized. The pulp of all the teeth on one side, then the soft tissues anterior to the mental foramen, that is gingiva, alveolar mucosa, buccal mucosa, labial mucosa, lip and chin anterior to the mental foramen on one side will get anesthetized. So as we are anesthetizing the lingual nerve, the anterior tooth of the tongue and the lingual soft tissues on one side also get anesthetized. Complications. Hematoma is rare, which can be controlled by application of pressure and ice fermentation to the area for at least 3 to 5 minutes. Next is trismus, a muscle soreness, and this could be because of injury to the medial pterygoid muscle. Next will be the facial nerve paralysis. As I already mentioned, in case if there is any lapse in following the anterior posterior dimension, we might accidentally end up landing the needle on parotid gland. which will eventually cause transient facial nerve paralysis. This condition is mostly reversible and will recover once the action of LA gets subsided. In conclusion, multiple studies using ultrasound and radiography have been tried to locate the mandibular foramen. These studies reveal that accurate needle location did not guarantee any successful pain control. The central core theory best explains this problem. The outer aspect of a nerve bundle is called as mantle fibers. The inner aspect is called as core fibers. These mantle fibers supply the molar teeth and the core fibers supply the anterior teeth. Therefore, the local anesthetic solution, even deposited near the inferior alveolar nerve, may diffuse and block the outermost fibers, but not those located centrally. This leads to incomplete mandibular anesthesia. Providing effective pain control is one of the most important aspects of dental care. Indeed, patients rate a dentist who does not hurt and one who can give the painless injections. This is the first most important criteria used in evaluating the dentist. Deposit the anesthetic solution very slowly. Trust yourself that you can complete the procedure atraumatically.